we're participating in the story that we tell ourselves. So the enlifted definition of mindset, let's review that real quick, get that back on the table. The enlifted definition of mindset is the story that we tell ourselves. Okay, so if you've never heard someone say, I'm good at taking a compliment, which most people have never heard someone say that, because most people almost always say the exact opposite. What do they say, Julie?
They'll deflect the compliment and they'll actually disparage themselves. Oh, no, I'm not really that good at it. Oh, yeah, no.
So let's say you're extremely wealthy, but your head's on fire and you just got Armageddon in your life with the people closest to you. How much are you going to enjoy that cashola?
Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast. This is the show where we are talking about wealth in a holistic way, health, mindset, and wealth, because financial freedom in and of itself is just not enough. And today I am so excited because my friend Mark England is back on the show again. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes for you, okay? So you can go back and listen to our last conversation, which is really focused on the problem that so many people have, right? Getting unstuck. And today in our conversation, we're taking it to the next level. In fact, we planned this episode right after we got done recording that episode so many months ago. And so today we're going to talk about the approach and the tools that you need to actually be able to give yourself wins, to give yourself credit. What would that actually feel like if you could celebrate sincerely the victories that you have, that you've earned, that you've worked for? So I'm so excited, and I know you are too, Conscious Investor. So let's welcome back Mark. Mark, I am so excited to have this conversation with you. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Julie. Thanks for listening again, everybody.
Yeah, this could get salty, y'all. We're both truth tellers, and so it might get a little bit saucy, might get a little bit spicy, because this topic is very much needed and necessary. Mark, why don't we? I think we should just dive in to this topic, because I know that we're going to riff and it's going to be powerful.
Yep. Well, most people wake up. And I mean, we're participating in the story that we tell ourselves. So the enlifted definition of mindset, let's review that real quick, get that back on the table. The enlifted definition of mindset is the story that we tell ourselves. That's what our mindset is, everybody. It's a story, and we're telling it to ourselves about ourselves. We have stories about our bodies. We have stories about our money. We have stories about the people in our lives. We have stories about the government. We have just stories. And most people's mindset, and a lot of it comes down to how we use our words. Most people's mindsets and their language are working against them. So what does that feel like? You know what that feels like for most people? They wake up and they're basically going on trial every single day. And it's like they've got a crazed prosecuting attorney in their head that goes and gathers evidence in a case against themselves that they're not good enough. A telephobia. That's the name for it, everybody. There's a name for it. The fear of not being good enough. If you want to get all Tony Robbins about it, he says 95% of our stuff is boiled down to a telephobia. And you know what? I'm right there with him. So yeah, it's like it's this crazed prosecuting attorney. It just keeps gathering evidence and presenting it. Remember when she did this? Remember when you messed that up? Remember when you fucked that up? Remember when this happened? Remember when they did that to you? And you're like, hey man, you said all that stuff yesterday. Oh, it doesn't matter. Today's a new day. And so we keep revisiting all of the fails. So most people they're just watching all of the fails in their life and all the problems and catastrophizing and things like that. And no wonder why they look at the words. They feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders, or I'm under a lot of pressure, or I've got a heavy heart. We're describing the energy that accumulates from a mindset that it really is. It's basically we're allergic to ourselves. And then you start to get into the breath component. Most people's language is working against them. Most people's stories are of a victim-centric nature. We went into that big time in our podcast. And that keeps people in a stress state. When people are in a stress state, their breath is trapped in their chest. When people's breath is trapped in their chest, it's called amygdala hijack. Look it up. I'm basically condensing the last podcast we did down to about 3 minutes, so then we can move on to what happens if you get yourself unstuck. Amygdala hijack, breath trapped in the chest. We get hyper-focused on the problem. We get very myopic. Our listening skills tank. We lose access to our creative faculties. Look all this stuff up, folks. And then the thing keeps going. Once it gets set up, it just runs on autopilot. Fortunately, there are ways to turn the volume down on that whole thing, as in dismantle the victim mentality, take those big scary pictures and movies of the things that we basically relentlessly stare at, and shrink them down and turn the volume down on them, move them over there. So then we can, that's what we specialize in at Enlifted, or at least that's where the journey of the Enlifted coach starts. It starts with how to get your client unstuck. And there are a lot of great systems out there, a lot of great methods out there that work wonders when it helps people getting unstuck. Why do we start our coaching certification process there? That's because that's how most people walk in the door. Most people do not walk in the door when the sun's out and everything's going well and they got this. No, they walk in the door and they got a problem. They're stuck. Things are going wrong. Their head's on fire, and that needs to be addressed first. So you meet your client where they're at, or you meet yourself where you're at. Most people don't get into mindset as far as a consumer is concerned. Like I said, when things are great, they start reading books about how to get better when they're like, man, I got some stuff going on and I need to get better. So they go and buy books on personal development. So once progress has been made, what do you want to do? At some point in time, you're going to want to present evidence to yourself that you are good enough. So the atelophobia is the fear of not being good enough. Well, what's the opposite of not being good enough? Being good enough. Glad y'all asked. It's rocket science. And so what you can do, it's called celebrating the wins, celebrating the progress. And what needs to happen, and I use that word need very consciously. It's a strong word. It's thrown around a lot. What needs to happen is you need to pick up a pen, that heavy ass pen, and go get the wins. Go get the progress and do the unthinkable, everybody. Write them out, write them down. And I'm not talking about journaling in the normal sense. I'm talking about going and getting, let's say, start with 5 specific times that you did something well. And I'm telling you what, you know what's weird here? It's harder for people to do that than it is to go get the 5 times that they mess things up the most.
Yeah.
It's significantly harder. It's mind-bogglingly harder because our reticular activating system, look that up, RAS, we talked about that on the previous podcast, is not tuned to celebrate wins. Let's back up because that's way down the line. Let's talk about taking a compliment. How many times, Julie, have you heard somebody say, "Oh yeah, I'm great at taking a compliment"?
Never. I've never.
No one
maybe
ever.
You could say that. But
well, because I've done some work on my story and
right.
and I have increased my psychological and emotional immunity to things, and I've become. I was talking about this morning, and I'll talk about the practice that I'm doing right now. I messaged my business partner, and it came up in conversation. And one of the reasons why I do take a compliment and enjoy them, one is because the person giving it to me wants me to have it. And
Yep.
2, I'm okay with me being good enough. Most people are not okay with their bad stuff, and they're not okay with their good stuff. That is a rock and a hard place. You got to go into both of those stories. Go into the shadow realms and get those scary stories. Get all Jordan Peterson about it. Confront the dragon. Get the gold. And you got to write these things down, everybody. I mean, stories kept in the head versus stories written down it's a profound difference. Wins kept in the head versus wins written down. It's a profound difference. And so most people think that it's a good thing to be selfless, We got it backwards. And a bad thing to be self-centered. I'm here to say that we got the words mixed up. More on that in a second. So let's just say, okay, so if you've never heard someone say, I'm good at taking a compliment, which most people have never heard someone say that, because most people almost always say the exact opposite. What do they say, Julie?
They'll deflect the compliment and they'll actually disparage themselves. Oh, no, I'm not really that good at it. Oh, yeah, no, they're better. You're better. Or they'll give a compliment
I got lucky.
Oh, you're beautiful too.
Yeah. Tons of different ways to deflect it. Most people say, I'm terrible at taking a compliment, and they're telling the truth. So it's like someone comes up to them. So when you give somebody a compliment, do you want them to accept the compliment?
Oh, yes.
You want them to have it. Of course, me too. I've never given somebody a fake compliment, or if I have, I don't remember when the last time was. And so what that's like, so most people, let's just say that most people, when they give a compliment, they're sincere about it. Someone comes up to you and they have a gift, a physical gift, and they go, here's a gift. I want you to have it. And you go, thanks. You take it and throw it in the trash can right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing. And so when it comes to giving credit and acknowledgement from us to us, it's on a whole other level. And we need to get those words and stories in writing so we can present evidence in a case for ourselves that we are good enough.
Okay, question.
And then go ahead.
Question for you. One of the practices I always encourage people to do is just chronicle the evidence. I'm such a fan of getting the data, giving the evidence to support that new belief. I love using our little computer in our pocket, and I'll make a little photo album, screenshot the message, the DM, the picture, the whatever it is that's making your heart happy. Have a little album. Mine's called encouragement. If I'm feeling gloomy, I can go back there and I'd be like, actually, the truth is, this is what people think about me. The truth is, this is something I accomplished. And so do you have other ways that you think are awesome at gathering that evidence, depending on people's personality, or do you really like writing it down?
We're at Lifted, we primarily write things down, and that is a fantastic practice as well, because what she's telling the truth. We have to compile evidence and we have to present evidence. It's not good enough to keep compliments and nice things people have done for us and the times we've knocked it out of the park in our head. So what happens, because here's what happens. For whatever reason, scary stories, the problem stuff, those stories kept in the head, those stories are way up close and personal and very meaningful. They mean a lot. Wins kept in the head, so we have a way of helping people go get these wins. It's writing prompts. The first one is name 3 times, and what we're looking for is a specific event, a specific compliment. Title it and write it out conversationally, at least 1 paragraph. It has to be conversational writing, everybody. I don't make the rules for whatever reason. Name 3 things you're grateful for. 3 bullet points. It doesn't cut it. It doesn't summon the gratitude. So it's actually a net negative. So somebody says, hey, name 3 things you're grateful for. Somebody goes, my family, my job, and my friends. And you can tell it you've heard people say that, and you can tell they're not feeling the gratitude. And in the back of their mind, they go, you're a piece of shit. You really should be grateful for this stuff. So it turns out to be a net negative.
Yes.
And so it needs to be written down conversationally. What's conversational writing? It's writing as if you were telling the story, because guess what? You are going to tell the story.
Yeah.
And so the writing prompts for our celebrating the wins is name 3. And so it's title it and write it out. Get 3 times that people gave you a compliment. 3 times people were there for you. Your 3 biggest wins as an adult, and this one's wild. Your 3 biggest wins as a kid. And we title those out and we write them out, and then we 4-step them. Okay, I'll talk about that in a second, because it's super easy to do. It's as basic as it gets, and it's as reliable as it gets. And so, like I said, the scary stuff, it's up close and personal and very meaningful and overwhelming. Stories kept in the head. And when it comes to the good stuff, which is where most people keep those good stories, people keep their scary stories and their good stories in their head. The good stories in our head are way over there and not meaningful at all. Oh, that didn't mean that much. And what we see time after 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 time, when people pick up the pen and write it out, it gets closer and becomes more meaningful. And they're like, wow, that really did mean a lot to me. And then you know they're feeling it. Okay. And so we've got this thing, and in Lifted, it is at the same time, it's exclusive coaching tech to us. It came out of my private practice. It took about literally 10 years to formulate, even though it's comically simple. It's called 4-Stepping a Story. Step 1. And it's at the same time the crown jewel and the Swiss Army knife of the Enlifted method, and we give it away. Step 1, title it and write it out. So let's say it's the time that your best friend in college, and it's little stuff like this that ends up not being so little. Okay, I'll just give an example of someone, because we're running a level 2 cert right now, group 13. And 10 days ago, I finished up, it took me 11 days to do it, 21 level 2 celebrating the win, one-on-one coaching sessions with me. I was on Zoom all day long for 11 days. And a story that ended up being very meaningful to a woman once she wrote it down. She's a CrossFit coach, and one of her gym members brought her in 2 big salmon casseroles because she knew that she had a very busy week. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And she titled it and wrote it down. And so step 1, title it, write it down. Step 2, read the damn thing. Read it out loud. And then ask yourself the greatest of all time coaching question. Do you all know what the greatest of all time coaching question is, everybody? It's, what does this mean? What does this mean about you? Because we're meaning-making machines. And a lot of times, it's not the story that gets us. It's the meaning that we assign to the story that gets us, or the lack of meaning that we assign to the story that gets us. Yes. And the problem stuff, too close, too meaningful. The good stuff, too far away, not meaningful enough. And so she said, what does this mean? And I asked her, what does this mean about you? And she came up with 4 or 5 affirmations. This is a whole other part of the conversation.
Wow.
Why affirmations fail. Most of the affirmations fail, and what you need to do if you want them to land. So I asked her, well, what does this mean about you? After she wrote it and after she read it, she came up with, I am very supported. People pay attention to me. I've got great friends. I'm in a phenomenal community. And a couple of other ones that were like that. My friends love me. I love my friends. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then step 3 is to read the same story slow. So you slow down your rate of speech by 30%. Again, I don't make the rules. What does that do? Glad y'all asked. That loosens up the breath. When someone slows down their rate of speech, it loosens up the breath. And what we want people to do is to receive the compliment, also known as be comfortable with the good thing, the win, the time they got it right. And if they're all puckered up and their breath is trapped in their chest, that thing ain't landing. The affirmations aren't landing. The compliments aren't landing. The wins aren't landing. And then to further unlock the breath, which is very important. Good luck changing your client's mind if their breath is trapped in their chest. It's the same story, step 4, slow read, and at the end of each sentence, you do this. So you get the breath in between, and what happens is the whole thing lands, and it becomes very close and meaningful, and it majorly influences people's reticular activating system, as in the lens that they see themselves through. Most people's RAS is their lens, which is driven by our language, is not dialed like a pair of binoculars to see the good stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not dialed to see the compliments, the times we knocked it out of the park. And your clients, I promise you, everybody, whether you're a coach or you're not, it doesn't matter. You have wins. You have a lot of wins to share, way more than you think. And the swing vote is picking up that pen and going and getting them. And I can absolutely go on a major rant right now about why the average affirmation doesn't land, and what you need to do if you want to get them, because it goes hand in hand with celebrating the wins. You want me to riff?
Yeah, let's do that, because I've talked about it before. It's just like the gratitudes. Like, to me, I put them in the same bucket. It's superficial. It doesn't have meaning. It doesn't have context. It's let's go.
Yeah. So there are 4 main strikes why people's affirmations don't land, or they don't feel them, or they don't work. And the people are telling the truth. Okay. So strike number 1 is that all of that victim-centric, all the fails, all the times that life threw them a curveball, the perceived slights, all of that stuff, that junk.
Yeah.
What people walk in a coaching session with, where they start working on themselves. Most people have a lot of stuff to clean up in their mindset when they first start working on themselves. That stuff hasn't been addressed very well. And so it's basically you've got a huge speaker sitting right next to your head, yelling complete opposite words and story and noise compared to the affirmation. So there's too much interference. Okay, there's too much interference. Number 2, okay, there's no evidence to back up the affirmations. Why should I believe these affirmations? Where's the proof that they're real? And like I said, most people have a real hard time taking a compliment. You want to watch them really squirm? Just give it to them cold. Give them a pen and say, write down 10 nice sentences about yourself. That's going to be way harder than taking a compliment. So guess what? People don't write down affirmations about themselves. They go get it off of a website where somebody in Sedona that says, with a crystal, and says you got to read these for 108 days for them to finally sink into your subconscious mind. So now we've got the first 2 problems. 1, there's too much junk in the way, all the fails. Remember, you're not good enough. Here's the proof. And then there's no evidence to back up the affirmations that we're believing. And then from there, let's say someone does get a book from Sedona and the crystal, and they have a list of affirmations to read. The breath is trapped in the chest. And so it sounds like this: I'm good enough. People take care of me. I'm making a lot of progress. Everything's working out. My body is healing. And if the breath is trapped in the chest, that shit is not getting in. It's just this mental exercise, and people say, I don't feel it. And then some genius says, oh, that's because you need to do it for 108 days, or you just need to want it more. No, the mechanics are way off. And so 1, too much junk in the way. 2, we haven't provided any evidence, and that's what the wins are. You go get 10 wins. You go get 3 wins. 3 wins and write them out. There's the proof. And then you say, hey, what does this mean about you? And the affirmations fall right out. That's why that's the greatest of all time coaching question. What does this mean about you? It works for the ouchy shit. It works for, because you need the meaning. The meaning needs to be spelled out and either dispelled or reinforced. And and so breath trapped in the chest. And then the 4th strike is someone somewhere thought that you have to sound like a weirdo robot in order for affirmations to land. So it's, I am making a lot of progress. People in my life are really good to me. Everything I dream and desire is making manifest. And so it's this weird nobody talks like that.
No.
Nobody talks like that. It's so disconnected. And so what you want to do, if you want your affirmations to land, is go get the scary stories, turn the volume down on them. There's a lot of ways to do it. Then go get evidence, go get the wins, present them to yourself. This is from you to you, as in write them down. And then go, hey, well, what does this mean? Look at the proof. What does this mean? Perfect bullseye affirmations, your words from your stories, not someone else's words from their book that they're trying to sell you. Well, they'll just fall right out. And then once you compile a list of affirmations, and if you have 3 wins, you're probably going to get 15 bullseye affirmations. And then when it comes time to read them, you read one. I've got a lot of people in my life. I've got a lot of great people in my life. Get the breath in between there. And what it does, it'll do, it's 3 ways of saying the same thing. You will socialize the idea, you'll take it to heart, you'll embody the concept, or you'll feel it. And then read it. Read it like it's, here's how you want to read it. OTC, like it's obvious, like it's true, and like it's cool. Okay? And if you read it like that, you're not going to sound like a weirdo robot.
Right.
And so, man, I'm making a lot of progress. I've got the best people in my corner. This is how you want to read your affirmations, everybody. Affirmations are awesome if you stack them right. My mom's been there for me so many times. I've gotten so much better at fill in the blank. And if you do that, everybody, all you need is 7 days. After 7 days of reading them with breath, like a person that's telling obvious, true, and cool sentences, you will either be at matter of factsville or close enough, or you'll either be at certainty of them being true or close enough, and then that's it. Walk. Seeds planted. Go walk away. Go do something else.
Gosh, I love that. And I feel the same way about like affirmations or even the whole fake it till you make it type thing. It's not a truth. And so it's like I'm borrowing something from someone else and it's not mine. It's not mine. And so I need to create this from within, and I need to connect with myself so that I know myself and I can build this in an organic way. You know, Mark, really, truly peacetime, being able to celebrate, and they feel so selfish. They're concerned about their ego. Oh, well, if I receive your compliment, then I'm just an egotistical jerk. Like I can't do that. And so how do we speak truth into that story?
Yeah, well, that phenomenal point. That's a pro point. We need to take a look at it. So, like I said earlier, we got it backwards. You need to be selfless, less than self. Okay? And it's bad to be self-centered or centered in self. No, I do not want to be selfless. I do not want to be less than myself. And I do want to be self-centered. I want to be centered in myself. And there is a centering that comes along with being brave and going into the scary shit and addressing it. And also going into the good stuff and addressing that. So what happens? You become better or good with the darkness, your darkness, and you become better or good with your lightness. You're okay with your shadow, and you're okay with your light. You're okay being bad. I'm not saying to go out and be bad. I'm saying being okay with it. Most people are so not okay with it because they haven't gone in there and done anything with it. They're just getting their ass kicked by it on the reg. And then they're not okay with their goodness either, because we've got this weird. And so what that does, it puts people in the bizarre rock and a hard place of being desperate to be seen and acknowledged, and terrified of being seen and acknowledged.
Yes.
And that's inertia 101. That's imposter syndrome 101, 201 and 301. And so why people think that it's a bad thing to take a compliment or to give themselves some credit. A lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want other people to feel bad about themselves if I raise myself up. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Let's do this. Let's just trash ourselves and keep us, and if anyone gives us some compliments or anything, we'll just deflect them immediately, so then we can all trauma bond at the lowest common denominator. Oh, and by the way, we'll inadvertently demonstrate that to our children. They can inherit that that unspoken rule of self-deprecation. That sounds like a great idea. No, it doesn't. So when someone learns to take, it's a flavor of taking care, because there's a flavor of self-acknowledgement and self-accreditation and giving yourself a pat on the back that only you can give to yourself. And when you do that, it does so much for people in your community, your family, your friends, because it starts to unravel these weird codependencies of under the radar stuff of like, yeah, I don't want a compliment, but I'm fishing for one. I'm desperate for one. Oh, and then if someone says something to you like the specific exact way you want to hear it, it's fleeting. Mm-hmm. No. What you want to do is you want to let yourself know that it sounds nuts, that you're good enough to be alive.
Mm-hmm. Curating that reputation. This is something I'm a firm believer in, is like the number one reputation that I want to have is with myself.
Yeah.
And that's because I have no control over the outside world. But that, like you, is a lot of inner work that I've done over years, where I understand that, like, I can't control what they think, what anyone else thinks of me. But can I look in the mirror and can I say, I love you? You did an excellent job. Like that, I actually see myself as like two separate people in a sense. Like, here I am, but here I am also this other, outside looking in, saying, wow, like, look what you're accomplishing. Look what you're doing. Oh yeah, you totally dropped the ball on that or screwed up on that. But you're moving on, and being able to have that wholeness and that roundabout, because FOPO, like fear of people's opinions, is a real thing, and we have to silence the peanut gallery.
Yeah. And it will come back to our fear of our opinions of ourselves.
Oh, let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, it's I will explode on someone for saying something to me once that I've secretly said to myself 1,000 times and worse. It's a weird conundrum. It's a very interesting exploration into mindset, with the story that we tell ourselves and all the different facets and all the different angles. It's fascinating. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. And really, it's the only game in town if you want to have a shot at it, at being comfortable in your own skin. So we're known as the language people, and that's cool. And push comes to shove, it's about the breath. We're there to help people use their words to unlock their breath so they can be, like I said, comfortable in their own skin. Good luck being comfortable in your own skin when your breath is trapped in your chest. It's not going to happen. And yeah, so fear of other people's opinions, fear of our opinions. A lot of that just comes down to a lack of understanding how to write and what to do with the words once they're on paper. Journaling, half the time journaling is a net negative, because people will journal and they'll just journal about all the dog shit, and then they feel better, they feel vindicated. Look, I've got it in writing. Look at all these wrongs that have been committed against me. No, that's just the rough draft. You want to go in there and look for the words that keep you stuck in the victim mentality, and the ones that there's three main pillars there's three main language pillars that drive the victim mentality. So once again, I know we did this last time. Let's do it again, because it's been a year since I've been on. The definition of the victim mentality, everybody, super important. The victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. That's the verbatim definition of the victim mentality. Most people have never heard the verbatim definition of the victim mentality. And what I also invite y'all to do is to rewind that, listen to it again, and write it down. So now you're in a very exclusive club. And you'll retain more of it, by the way. You get about 20% extra retention when you write things down. And so that second sentence is right between the eyes, everybody, right where it belongs. The victim mentality depends. Circle that word on a habitual, underline that word, thought process and attributions. So if there are thought processes, what's a thought process? That's how you put your words together. That's all that is. If there are thought processes that the victim mentality has to have habitually, which implies duration and addiction, well, what are they? What are the words that force me to create villains out of thin air or make things way fucking worse in my head, light it on fire, and then drag everybody into my life about it? And the main one, the most inflammatory, there's three: projections, negations, and soft talk. We'll go in that order. So projections, what do those sound like? She's always trying to control my life. When someone says she's always trying to control my life, there's going to be two people in that picture, she and myself. And she's the villain and I'm the victim. She's doing something to me. I'm an innocent bystander. I have to wait for her to stop doing that in my imagination in order for me to feel better. And if I know what the words are, and I know I pay attention to my feelings more than most people aren't paying attention to their feelings. Okay, they're being consumed by them. She's always trying to control my life. No, wait a minute. Oh yeah, projection. Projection keyword. Take out the she, put an I. I'm always trying to control my life. They need to stop wasting my time. Who wastes more of our time than us, everybody? Nobody. It's not even a close second. So they need to waste my time. And then I realize I've pissed myself off again, in 20 minutes versus roasting entire weekend. You want to talk about saving time? Start thinking about your thinking more. Get all Alan Watts about it. Alan Watts said, when we learn to think about our thinking, we become alive in a new way. They're wasting my time. Now take out the they. No, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my time, one, thinking about them wasting my time, and then all these other ways that I'm wasting my time. Or he needs to respect me more. Wait a minute. He does or I do? Well, I need to respect me more. And so you get in this habit of being able to check yourself before you riggedy-wreck yourself again. So there's projections. Those are the most inflammatory. Those are the most venomous. And then negations. That's where the catastrophizing and the worrying comes from. I don't want to spend all my money again. There's a picture of me spending all my money. I can't keep living like this. There's a picture of you continuing to live like this. I won't let them treat me like that again. Now you got a negation and a projection. I won't, keyword. So a won't, isn't, haven't, not, shouldn't, can't, hasn't. That forces me to stare at the worst case scenario. I don't want to have an argument with you again, Julie. What did I just make a picture of? Us arguing again versus I want to go out and have a great conversation with you about some things that we can talk about.
I always think about
two different pictures.
The picture the picture we're portraying, the story that we're creating. It's so important. And we spoke about this, last time you were on the show, is like these stories that we are creating and telling ourselves are so important. The words that we are using. I have to stop myself often. I have to stop family members. Like, wait, what's that story that you live? Like, can we please edit that story? That will be extremely helpful for you. Mark, we both knew, that's why we hit record as soon as possible, that I am just like, oh my gosh, we're going to have you on next. We'll have you on again. It's just be an annual tradition.
Send me the schedule. But I'll schedule that shit right now when we're done.
I know, because we did it last time and you popped on the calendar and I was so happy. But I absolutely love this conversation. And I love how there are practical ways of, hey, pick up the pen, start writing, let's start changing the story. Let's get into the meaning of the story that we are creating. It's just so many practical ways for the conscious investor to engage their life. And I know that there are listeners, conscious investor, I know some of you are listening right now and you're like, I need more of this. And so maybe I want to work with an enlifted coach, or you might be listening and saying, oh my gosh, I want to help people do this. And so can we, as we wrap up, can we speak to those different people so that they know how to, engage with you and the Enlifted community?
Of course, our certifications, and I teach all of our certifications, level 1, 2, 3, and the specialty courses. Go to enlifted.me. We have a podcast. It's called Get Enlifted. It's all about words and stories and getting our language and stories working for us. And then our Instagram is @EnliftedCoaches. I answer everything there. If people inquire about Enlifted Coaches, hey, can I work with it? Of course you can. We have 430 Enlifted Coaches certified to date, and they're fantastic. And we can pair you up with somebody who works for you. And yes, the title of this podcast is called The Conscious Investor. And yes, please build your wealth and also be able to enjoy your wealth. Okay. Let's say you're extremely wealthy, but your head's on fire and you got Armageddon in your life with the people closest to you. How much are you going to enjoy that cashola? Okay. Enjoy work on your story so you can enjoy the fruits of your labor. And more importantly, so you can enjoy yourself and other people can enjoy you. Mm. And then the wealth that you've created that's the icing and the cherry on the cake.
Absolutely. And really, if you are listening and you are thinking that you are a massive saver and you're keeping it all because, I'm not a spender, I just want you to know you're still operating from a scarcity mindset. We can go into that on a mindset episode soon. It's really important.
Let's do that on the next podcast.
It's scarcity mindset?
Of course.
Oh, that's such a great topic.
And misery economics.
Oh, okay. We'll have fun on that one for sure. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sending you a link after this. Conscious Investor, thank you so much for taking time to listen. I know that you have enjoyed this as conversation with Mark as much as I have. If you are a newer listener to the show and you haven't heard the previous episode with Mark, it is phenomenal. And so you are going to want to go down to the show notes and you're going to want to listen to that episode as well. And please remember, this content is created to serve you. It's free to you. And one of the most powerful things that you can do is share this with someone that you know is going to be enlifted by this conversation, right? So don't keep it to yourself, share it around with someone else. And if you have a moment, please take a moment to leave an honest rating and review. It helps the podcast reach more people so that we can serve and support other people in becoming just the people they were created to be. Conscious Investor, I appreciate you and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.